Yes, here we are. We are live right here for the good fight every Tuesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you so much for joining us. Woo, 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 woo. I am super excited for this conversation today because well, I don't want to say it like that. I don't want to say it like I'm super excited about this conversation as if I'm not super excited about the other conversations. I'm super excited about every conversation. I guess sometimes they prick me more than others. Some conversations prick me more than others because actually, after last week's, I've been thinking a lot about last week's conversation where I'm saying, hey, what would it take for us to not only name something that's going on in our lives, but also act on it? And so I had to ask myself, like, are you acting on your stuff? So I've been thinking about that a lot. But I'm just super excited about tonight's conversation because it does focus on us. It's all about us. It's all about who we are, who we think we are, how we see ourselves, how we feel about ourselves. And I'm just really ready to get into it. So thank you so much for joining us for the good fight tonight. If this is your first time joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome. You are welcome in this, all of you are welcome in the spirit of Sawubona. Sawubona is a Zulu tribal greeting, which means, which really is a greeting. It really is a greeting. Sawubona, you can walk past somebody and say Sawubona, right? It's a way to greet each other. But that greeting invites the person into your space. I am inviting you into conversation with me, whether it's verbal, nonverbal, whatever it is. I want you to know that this is a space that I can create for you to be all of who you are. And so the Sawubona says that we are bound by the spirit of oneness that connects us. And that spirit of oneness that connects us is our humanity. There is nothing that we can do as humans to sever another human from us because we are all part of one big, great phenomenon, and that is humanity. And so Sawubona says, I want you to know that you are welcome in this space to be the whole of who you are. And I see you, I respect you, I honor you, and I celebrate you, even though we have differences. We have differences across all types of lines, whether they are social lines, political lines, religious lines, educational lines, economic lines. It does not matter what those lines are. There are lines of differences that do not have to separate us. What they can do is enhance us. So in that spirit of saying all of who you are is welcome in this space, thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, there are ways that you can engage with the good fight. One of the ways that you can engage, I feel like I see some on my lip. One of the ways that you can engage with the good fight is to locate yourself in the story. So as we go through the text, because we are grounding this conversation in a passage of a pericope, a text from, look, I guess I need to stop doing it. It's bothering me. A text out of the Bible that many Christians, Protestant Christians, use. We are grounding our conversation in that. And so as we work through this story from this text, from this pericope meaning just this is the section of the text that I have pulled out for our consideration. So there's way more to the story. There's way more to talk about. There's a whole lot I'm leaving out, but this is the part that I am lifting up for our consideration. Hotel, I see you. And it's coming from Exodus chapter 3. And so one of the ways that you can engage is to find yourself. What role are you playing? When you look at this story, if you look at it as a story has characters. Which character are you? Which character are you now? Which character have you been? Which character would you like to be? Which character do you hope to be in the future? Like, find yourself and locate yourself in the story. That's one way that you can engage. Another way that you can engage in the good fight is to realize that really this is not your story. This doesn't have anything to do with you, but that doesn't mean that you should opt out of the story just because it's about somebody else. Instead, you want to receive the story as a gift. You want to hear the story. You want to learn from the story. You want to be able to say, let me just file that story in the back of my mind. It might come up another time. It might not. But I want to be attentive to it anyway. Many times, especially in this world where we are taught to be individuals, we are conditioned in the system of individualism that says it's all about me. Well, if they ain't got nothing to do with me, I ain't gonna worry about it. But everything that has something to do with your neighbor, affects you. Whatever affects your neighbor affects you. And so it is important for us to be able to sit back and receive the stories of others and to carry those stories with us as well. A third way that you can engage in the good fight is to walk through a door. And so we're only going to be on here for the next, right now, 55 minutes. So what happens after I end this stream and leave the studio? What happens with the story? Does it continue to live in you? And if so, how does it continue to live? Does it come up at a later date? Do you still think about it? Are you still talking about it? Does it make you want to go do some more research? Do you want to read some more? Do you want to have more conversation with different people? Do you want to invite some people into your space? Do you want to practice what it means to live the Sawubona? Like, how do you continue to wrestle with the story even beyond this moment? That's what it means to walk through a door. And then finally, you can comment. You see Lo already teaching us how to comment. Just simply comment right here in the space. I can't comment back. I think that I'm going to switch. I really am thinking about switching the good fight to YouTube channel, because I know why I use StreamYard for the radio, because I have other people coming on with me and we need to be able to see both of those spaces. But now when I really think about it, we don't have to use StreamYard for the good fight. And if we use YouTube, then I would be able to comment with you, like, I don't know. So I'm thinking about that. But anyway, you can also comment, and you can comment now, and you can comment beyond this moment. My number is area code 228-236-7440, area code 228-236-7440. I have no problem extending the conversation beyond this moment, even if it's one-on-one. You can message me however you want to do it. But I've been thinking about something. Those of you who know me, or who are getting to know me, I should say that. Those of you who are getting to know me know that I stream. I don't watch TV. I stream TV through apps. So I'm watching crime shows, I'm watching cooking shows, and I'm watching them back to back to back. So I'm not watching I don't know. I don't even know no TV shows, whatever I'm not watching The Young and the Restless. Like, I don't watch that. But I'm streaming shows, and I'm either streaming a crime show or I'm streaming a cooking show. And one of the things that continues to happen on the crime shows is that people, I think, collapse or conflate who a person is with what they do. So regardless of what crime it is, first of all, I think it's important for us to understand that every single human, we talked about Sawubona, the spirit of oneness that is rooted in our humanity. So those of us who are human, if you are human, you have capacity for both good and bad. You have capacity to do right, and you have the capacity to do wrong. And what separates the two, what separates from you from doing something good from doing something that's bad, is a choice. And we make choices all day long. All day long, we are making one decision after the other. Whether we are recognizing the intentionality of that choice is one thing, because we're making decisions so fast that many of us are not really even feeling like we're making a decision. We think that it just happens to us. That's what happens when we talk about this phenomenon called love. And I hear many people say things like, well, the heart wants what it wants. You can't help who you love. And you say that as if there is no decision-making process that happens when you fall in love with somebody. And I am here to say that every aspect of our lives, whether it's romantic, political, social, economic, it is dependent on us making a conscious, well, I don't want to say conscious in this case. It is dependent on us making a decision, whether you realize it consciously or not. You don't just fall in love with somebody. You get it. You meet somebody, you start interacting with that person, you start engaging in conversation, you start spending time with that person. And as you are doing that, your feelings are beginning to grow. Your feelings are growing, their feelings are growing. And then you begin to recognize, y'all start looking at each other differently. You start, testing it out, putting your hand on the thigh, see what happens. Like, these are things that are happening. And then you get to decide, then you say, okay, I'm feeling you, you feeling me. What are we going to do about these feelings? And now Yes. And so here is low. And so, yes, even though your body is responding to the other person and you are having these feelings that are making you all jittery inside, we call them the butterflies, like all of this goodness, all of these endorphins are being released as you are spending time with this person. Yes. But you all have to decide with your mind whether or not you are going to pursue a relationship that leads to a commitment that lasts for however long it lasts. It might last until death do you part. I don't know, but your mind is what makes the decision. And so when we are so what I've been thinking about when we have these when I'm to have this particular conversation is how it seems like people feel like because because you do something, like there's a separation between who you are and what you do, as if you have no control over what you do because what you do somehow falls in line with who you are. So let me give you an example. Let me just state it plain what I'm saying. So when I'm watching these crime shows in particular, there will be a person, let's say the person is a doctor. Because the person is a doctor, if that person does something that the world considers to be bad or evil, people clutch their pearls. I can't believe that a doctor would do this. Or if the person is a police officer who kills their wife, you say, oh, I cannot believe that a police officer would do this. Or if the person is a pastor and that pastor molests his own child, you say, oh, I can't believe that a pastor would do this. And so some kind of way we've got this notion in our mind that who I am is the same as what I do. And what I'm asking us to consider today is that these are two distinct, different behaviors. That who I am has absolutely nothing to do with what I do. It does not matter my profession. It does not matter my socioeconomic status. It does not matter what neighborhood I live in. It does not matter what kind of car I drive. It does not matter whether or not I am a parent. None of that matters as it relates to the character that I have on the inside, which is human character, which is prone to be good and bad at any time. So regardless of my profession, I still have the capacity to choose right or to choose wrong in any given moment. And because of the complexity of what it means to be human, I can choose right at 5:00 and choose wrong at 5:05. Like that's just the complexity of being human. So this idea that we have that there are certain identities that we hold that preclude us from having certain behaviors, we've got to get rid of that. We've got to drill down through the identities and get to the essence of who we are to understand that in the essence of who I am, anything is possible because I am human. And so what happens to us is that when we believe that the identity determines my actions, then we hold people hostage to that identity and we don't allow them to breathe. We don't allow them to be human because we put them in this box and says, oh no, if you are a teacher, if you are a preacher, if you are a healthcare professional, if you are a person who is addicted to drugs, whatever that is, that box is, then we say, these are the things that you can do. So let's look at it the other way. So if you say a person who is addicted to drugs, a person who is a sex worker, when they witness a crime and they go into the police station and they are being interrogated and they are telling you what they witnessed, automatically the police will say, well, no, when we send this over to the DA for them to determine whether or not this case is good enough to go to court, we know we're going to have another witness because this witness is not credible. Just because the witness is a sex worker, just because the witness is a person who uses injection drugs, we automatically assume that identity means that they cannot tell the truth. And so because I have a certain behavior, that does not change the essence of who I am. The essence of who I am says that I have the capacity to do the right thing. I can use drugs and still tell the truth, sir. I can be a sex worker and still know right from wrong. Like, what do you mean that because I have this behavior, that automatically means that I'm capable or incapable of doing something? That is not the truth. All of us, not because of what we do, but because of who we are as human, have the capacity to choose every single moment what is the best choice, what is the best thing for us to do that will yield the outcome that we want to yield. And so I want us to think about that, to think about divesting yourself from what you do, beginning to separate yourself from your profession, like whatever your I had the guest today for Community Voices. We were talking before we went, before we started the recording. And one of the things she said to me, this was Dr. Brooke Montgomery. One of the things that she said to me that I absolutely loved was that she said, yes, this research study, that's part of my job. But the real work that I do is that I have 4 children. I am a parent. Like, that's my real work. Like, I don't want you to get it twisted. Like, the essence of who I am is to make sure that I am nurturing those that have been entrusted to me, to make sure that I am doing my best to raise them up in the way that I believe that they're supposed to go. Not because that's going to define me as a person, but because it's beyond this identity of work. It is beyond the workplace. It is beyond the political arena. It is beyond the social atmosphere. This is who the essence of who I am says that I am supposed to tend to and care for humans, because I am human, and I want to make sure that I am interacting with other humans and helping other humans interact with other humans in a way that allows us to live into the spirit of Sawubona. And so I want us to just stop for a moment and let's just think. Let's just think about what happens when we enter into a space, whether it is an unfamiliar space. So we enter into an unfamiliar space. It is a gathering of sorts. I don't care where it is, whether it's at church, whether it's at the grocery store, whether it's at a workshop, whether it is you are invited over to somebody's house and there are other people that are there that you don't know. Whatever the space is, you enter into this space, you don't know people, and so now you are being introduced, or you are introducing yourselves depending on your personality. What's usually the second question? The first question is usually, what's your name? Right, what's your name? Hi, I'm Denise. The second question is usually, what do you do? Am I right about that? The second question is usually, what do you do? Where do you work? Something related to some kind of service that you offer to the world for which you are getting paid. Because we don't, when a person says I'm a homemaker, we don't see that the same way as a person who says, oh, I'm the CEO of a company, or I work for Bell South. Y'all remember Bell South? No, if a person says they're a homemaker, we kind of feel like you really don't have no job. But what we're trying to figure out is, what are you doing that makes you a contributor, a positive contributor to the economic health of our world? Like, how are you positioning yourself to make sure that the economy grows because you putting in the work? And that's usually the second question. If it's not the second question, it's the third question. If it's not the third question, it is the top 5. And so what happens when we begin to think about, when we begin to introduce ourselves in that way, when we begin to learn about people in that way, with that being the top, those are the top, that's the top, one of the top questions in our minds, then we begin to conflate who the person is with what they do. Oh, you a CEO, then that must mean ABC. Oh, you a homemaker? Oh, that must mean DEF. And really, what we should be doing is not even asking people what they do, but asking people, who are you? What are your convictions? Like what keeps you up at night? Like, what helps you sleep at night? Like, what are your goals and aspirations for your life? Like, what's your next step? Where do you see yourself in your own personal growth and development in the next 5? Like, these are not the questions that we ask. We want to know what you do. And then once the person tells you what they do, then we start asking questions about what they do. Oh, so You a stockbroker? Like, what does that look like? Like, what do you do every day? Like, do you make a lot of money? Like, so everything becomes rooted and grounded in this label of what you do, rather than being grounded in the essence of who you are. And so that is where I feel like we are making our mistake, because we are not getting to know the person for who they are. We are only defining the person by what they do. So then if they do something that is outside of what we believe this box of professional identity suggests they're supposed to do, then we judge their character. And I'm like, wait, what now? So even if I do something that is considered bad or wrong or evil, even if I do that, does that stop me from being human? No. As a matter of fact, it should highlight the fact that I am human, because as humans, we can go either, it's touch and go. Any minute, it is touch and go. I might be headed to the left, doing it right to this moment, or I might be headed to the right, doing it wrong. And then, like, it is touch and go, because that is the complexity of what it means to be human. And we have got to begin or continue. I don't want to act like nobody's doing this. We've got to continue to make sure that we are creating spaces for people to be who they are, and not expecting people to be what they do. This reminds me of, I've had this conversation more than once about former United States President Bill Clinton, with the scandal that he had with Monica Lewinsky. And I just had this conversation like 2 Sundays ago. And the person I was talking to, I don't remember how this came up. I don't remember how it came up, but we were talking about something. And I said, I think he was talking about David and Joseph. His argument was that Joseph, the one who was the chosen son, who had the coat of many colors because his father favored him, who his brother sold into slavery, and he ended up being in a situation where a woman was trying to sexually assault him. And he made this statement, this declaration, like, there's no way that I can do this. Like, I know who I am. The essence of who I am, the character of who I am as a man of God will not allow me to be tempted in this way, that I would lie with the king's wife. Like, I'm not going to do that. And so then that was in contrast to David, who is the king. And then David is the king that people say, the Bible says, is a man after God's own heart, who then not only is he the king, but he's also a rapist and a murderer. Like, he's all of these things. And yet you say, so my friend was making the argument that we're supposed to be like Joseph. We're supposed to know that because we belong to God, because we are God's chosen, because we are God's children, then there's a way that we absolutely necessarily have to carry ourselves in order for us to live into what it means to be the essence of God in this world. And so I countered that by saying, well, wait a minute, what about David? Because the Bible declared, the same Bible you're talking about that tells the story of Joseph, tells the story of David, where David is the king and people honor him as the king. People look up to him as the king. He is all of that in a bag of chips with some chocolate and a Coke on the side. And yet and still he is a rapist and a murderer. And the Bible declares he's a man after God's own heart. So how is it that both of these men, you say, well, wait a minute, I don't want to talk about David. I want to talk about Joseph. But what I'm suggesting is that as a human, we are both Joseph and David. We have the capacity to do both. We have the capacity within our humanity to say, even though I carry this religious label, even though I identify in this box, this theological box that says this is who I am supposed to be as it relates to the doctrine and the discipline of my faith, that does not stop me from being human and being able to make a decision. And just because I make that decision doesn't mean I'm no longer God's. Doesn't mean I no longer belong. Well, I don't want to use that like that was his language. I don't believe in this belonging stuff. I don't believe in this ownership stuff. That does not mean that I don't still have convictions. That does not mean that I'm not still led and guided by a set of beliefs. That does not mean that I don't have faith in something bigger than me. What it means is I'm able to exercise my humanity, and you should be able to recognize, oh, in this moment, oh, you chose wrong. You still human, you just chose wrong. So there are consequences. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there should not be consequences. There are absolutely going to be consequences, but I still have the capacity as a human to make the wrong choice. And that should not mean that now I'm less than human because I did not do what this box said I was supposed to do. The box of profession, the box of religion, the box of whatever. So here's Triana. Who that is in that picture with you? I don't recognize. Having this issue right now with what an AP should look like. Oh, assistant principal. For those of you, yeah, Triana is now assistant principal. We did not hold space for that. Ooh, 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 ooh. I'm having this issue right now with what an assistant principal should look, act, and be like. But I'm damn great at my job. I just know I won't compromise who I have become and my piece to fit into an answer. Oh, now that's a good adjective, an antiquated box, because that's another thing that we do. We create these boxes and we put people in these boxes, and we don't ask ourselves, what are those boxes sourced in? Who created that box? What was it? What criteria was used to create the box? Who decided who goes in the box? And who decides who's able to get out the box? Are you ever even able to get out of the box? So my whole life becomes about making sure that I fit into this box. And that is why I think more people choose to do bad and wrong. That is my whole argument for tonight. The box is what causes us to make the decisions that are less destructive, that are more destructive to ourselves and to others. And the crime does not have to be killing somebody. I think it is a crime to compromise the essence of your soul. I think it's a crime for you to, like you said, for you to compromise your peace. I think it is a crime for you to say, I'm going to deny what I know to be true about myself so that I can make sure I end up in fulfilling the roles of this box. Because what that does is it sets up anxiety, depression, frustration, unhappiness, all of these things that are toxic to our bodies. So while you have me operating on autopilot on this job, my body is not at rest. And if my body is not at rest, that means I'm going to be sicker. I'm going to be sicker. I'm going to contract more diseases. I'm going to be at dis-ease. And so we have to give people the freedom to be human, which means there is no box. And even if I decide to put my own self in a box, I have the right to step out of it whenever I get ready. Like I'm seasonal. I'm like the earth, right? I come from the earth. I am the earth. So I change from season to season. And so when you say what an AP looks like, what does that mean? Like when you say, this is what an AP, that I had a similar experience when I was working through my journey into being a pulpit pastor, right? Like, what does it mean? Not only what is it for me, it was not only what does it look like to be a pastor, but you're a female pastor, and the box is designed for males. And so we had to go through this whole thing about how are you going to show up as a woman in this male box. So you need to wear a tie. You need to wear white on the top and black on the bottom. You need to have a lower your register. Like, wait a minute, what? That is not who I am. And so I'll be interested to see how your journey unfolds with what you're gonna, like, how are you gonna like figure it out, right? Like, where are you gonna land? Like, I know you said you're gonna not compromise, but what does it look like not to compromise up against a system that's expecting you to compromise? Like, how is that gonna work out? And so if we allow people to be the essence of who they are, rather than judge them by what they do, by the identity that we give them in employment in some professional space. And I really don't think I want to say professional space, because this conversation extends to those people, let's say people who are very wealthy, who may not have a job, or their job is to be a philanthropist. So that means that what they do is they throw galas with their own money, they host community events with their own money. So they are not workers, they are not employees, they are not being put in this box where I'm making money from someone else and therefore their money controls me, but just the idea of what it means to be an events organizer as a person who is wealthy. So this conversation extends across all levels. And so what does it mean for us to realize that we've got to stop for a moment and say, wait a minute. I am that I am. I am not what I do. I am that I am. Now, what I do just happens to be another layer of my humanity. It is a layer of my humanity, just like my gender is a layer of my humanity, right? Like that's another layer, but I am at the essence of who I am that I am. And who am I? I am who I was created to be. I am spirit, I am body, I am soul, I am mind. That's who I am. And that's who you need to get to know. And that's who you need to understand. And that would keep us from doing stupid stuff like, especially as it relates to Black women. And so Black women, we have this I love me some Black women. We have this wonderful ideology around fashion and especially around hair, where we consider hair to be an accessory. And so today I can be bald, but tomorrow I can put on a wig, and the next day I can have box braids, the next day I can have locks, the next day I can go back to being bald, because who I am is not contingent upon what I look like. But the world in which we live in, I don't know if this is other Black women's experience, but it's absolutely my experience, is that if you change your hairstyle, the person doesn't recognize you. So wait a minute, if I got a hat on, you don't know who I am because you can't recognize my face? No, because you weren't paying attention to my face. You were not trying to get to know me as human, to see the beauty of my traits, my eyes and my wide nose and my juicy lips. You weren't concerned about that. You were just like, oh, look at her hair. So Triana says, I already been in the Triana says, I already been in the office with a few choice words. It's all good. I'll be a catalyst of change. I am that I am. Yeah. I've already been in the office with a few choice words. It's all good. It's been my experience that those of us who are willing to be that catalyst of change, we the ones that get fired. Like, so a part of me is like, ooh, you done already been in the office. Good. Do you have an exit plan? Like, are you getting, do you have a strategy for what happens if you go into that office one day and they say, look, you can't work here anymore? That just happened to a friend of mine yesterday. She was acting as a catalyst of change. She was standing 10 toes down on who she is. She did not offend anybody. Somebody else got offended because of their own stuff that they dealing with. She walked in the next day and she was fired. So that's another thing that happens to those of us who understand that I am, because we are bucking against the system that says, no, you're supposed to be what I label you to be. And if you don't, then I consider you a threat. And if I consider you a threat, I got to get rid of you. So look, I'm just saying, I'm not wishing it. I'm not hoping it. I'm not putting it in the universe. I just think that we should always be ready. Always be ready. So I want us to think about the story of Moses as we are thinking about this conversation, because it is in the story of Moses in the book of Exodus, chapter 3. The story goes that I want the pericope. Remember, that's that part I'm pulling out just for us to consider, is from verse 1 through. Oh, I just saw this. Lo says, I'm a divine spirit living a human experience. I think that's a song. Is it Donald Lawrence? I think there's a gospel song that says something like that. And I think it's by Donald Lawrence. I have to look it up and send it to you. I really think it's by Donald Lawrence. I'm a divine spirit living a human experience, which is another reason why I said that I don't want to say anymore. I don't want to use this word that my mama died. Because if we believe this, that I am a divine spirit living a human experience, then when my human experience ends, that does not mean I cease to exist. That means that my spirit continues in another form. So I am a divine, I'm not a human that's trying to live in the heavenly realm, right? No, I am divine. I am spirit all the time. I love that. Thank you for reminding us of that. Yup, next step, discriminatory lawsuit. Yeah. But if you get fired, you got some time before the lawsuit happens. So what happens in the between time? I ain't mad at you for suing. I'm just saying, we got to get from point A to point B. Absolutely. Sue them. Sue them. I wish I could be the lawyer. I think I'm going to take some law classes. But here we are with Moses in the book of Exodus chapter 3. And the pericope is all the way from 1 through 15. But I want us to take our time with this. And so I've broken it up into different sections. And the first section, I think, is the first 3 verses. And so I got this. it's broken up 1 through 3, and then 4, then 5 and 6, and then 7 through 10, and then 11 and 12, and then 13 and 14, and then 15. So we may or may not get to all of it, but I just want us to take our time, because it is during this pericope that God says to Moses, I am that I am, because Moses is asking the question, like, what am I supposed to say? Like, these people are going to ask me some questions, going back to what I say about when you walk into a room and people don't know you, they're trying to get to know you, they're going to ask you some questions. And I want to be able to tell them what it is that they need to know and understand about why I showed up in this space. And God says, well, you're showing up in this space because I created you for that space. And so all they need to know is that I am, because that's who you are. That's all they need to know. They don't need. As a matter of fact, I was at my friend's house, and I was embarrassed. I actually brought somebody to her house. I was excited for her to meet him, and the first thing he asked her was, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Oh my gumdrops!" But I really appreciate my friend, because my friend said, "What difference does it make?" And so then the guy that I brought to meet her says, "Oh, when I tell you was knocked off kilter, didn't know what to do with that response. Like, I'm trying to get to know you." And she was like, "Okay, but what does getting to know me have to do with what I actually loved watching how it unfolded. I just thought about that. But yeah, and so let's not get it twisted. Who I am is not what I do. And so here we are I want us to start reading Exodus chapter 3, and we're going to start with verses 1 through 3. So let me pull that up for us. Exodus chapter 3. And this week I'm reading from the Easy English translation of the Bible. So there's the easy to read that was written for people who have English as a second language, to break it down and make it plain. But this is the Easy English version, which I really don't think has always been around. I used to use sometimes I use the Easy English Bible commentary. After I have figured out what I think about the scripture, I wonder what somebody else is saying. Like, I never let them define it for me. I get my own understanding. Then I say, I wonder how this lines up with what they're saying. And then I'm in a position to agree or disagree. If you start with the commentary, then it feeds your mind. But you don't want the commentary to feed your mind. You want to be able to challenge the commentary, either to accept it or to reject it. And so that's why you have to come to your own understanding before you reach out to somebody else for their opinion. And so I use the Easy English for that reason, but now it's a whole translation. So that's the translation we're using for tonight. It's the Easy English translation of the Bible for Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 15, but it's broken up into digestible pieces. So here we go. Wait. Right here. Let me get some water. So this is Exodus chapter 3 in the Easy English translation of the Bible that most Christians that are Protestant revere. Moses worked as a shepherd, and he took care of Jethro's sheep. Jethro was his wife's father. So that means Jethro is his father-in-law, and he was the priest of Midian. Jethro is his wife, his father-in-law, and his father-in-law is the priest of Midian. Moses led the sheep to the far side of the desert. He came to Sinai, which is the mountain of God. The angel of the Lord appeared to Moses there. The angel looked like a fire that was burning in the middle of a bush. Moses looked at the bush. He saw that it was on fire, but the fire still did not destroy it. Moses said to himself, I will go nearer and see this strange thing. I want to see why the bush is not completely burned. I want to revisit verses 2 and 3. Stay with me here. Listen to what happens in verses 2 and 3. The angel of the Lord appeared to Moses there on the mountain of God, which is called Sinai. He has led the sheep because he is a shepherd, and this is where he finds himself. The angel looked like a fire that was burning in the middle of a bush. Moses looked at the bush. He saw that it was on fire, but the fire still did not destroy it. Moses said to himself, I will go nearer and see this strange thing. I want to see why the completely burned. So I really want us to think about this for just a moment. The Bible says that the angel of the Lord appeared in the middle of the bush. And so it looked like the bush was on fire. Did y'all catch that? It looked like the bush was on fire. Did not say the bush was on fire, said it looked like the bush was on fire. Moses looks at it and says, this bush is on fire. The Bible said it just looks like it's on fire. Moses says it is on fire. And then he says, I got to get closer to this thing because I want to know why it's not burning. If the bush is on fire, it's supposed to burn up. If I put you in a box and I label you in this box, you're supposed to act like the label that's on the box. Moses has labeled this a burning bush. This bush is on fire. But the Bible said, no, it just looks like it's on fire. So now Moses is trying to figure out what's going on with you because you're not doing what I'm expecting you to do, because I have decided in my mind that you are what in actuality you are not. The Bible said it looked like it's on fire. Moses, you decided that it was on fire based on your experiences with what fire looks like. But you don't have an experience of what it means to be in the presence of this angel in this particular bush. This is your first time. So you're bringing with you your experience, which is what we all do. And that's absolutely okay. Like, what else can we do? But when we bring our experience, we have to also open ourselves up and say, just because this is my understanding doesn't make it so. So he going over not to open himself up to a new understanding of what it means to be in this phenomenon in this experience with this bush. He walks over like, nah, you ain't acting right. Let me figure out what's wrong with you. It's something wrong with you because you ain't acting right. Here's a comment. Sounds like an illusion. Sounds like an illusion. Sounds like a dream. Sounds like a daydream. That's what I was thinking about. Sounds like a dream. Sounds like a daydream. Sounds like an illusion. All I know is the Bible said that it just looked like the bush was burning, and Moses declared that it was. And now Moses is like, I need to know why you're not acting like you're supposed to act. And that is not part of the biggest problem that we are having with being unable to live into the spirit of Sawubona that welcomes the whole of who you are, is because I come in with my own set of beliefs and convictions and biases, and I am going to put them onto you because this is all I know. Then this is all I'm going to expect. And if you do anything outside of what I expect, then now we got problems. Instead of saying, I'm coming in with the whole of who I am, but also inviting the whole of who you are, now let us reason together so that we can grow together, learn together, work together, then we could be in a better place. And so Moses is doing to the bush the exact same thing that we do to each other. So the first question is for us to say, wait a minute. Am I walking into spaces with other humans and I've already decided how they're supposed to act? Oh, you a convicted felon. Oh, okay. I know how you're supposed to act. You a sex worker. Oh, I know how you're supposed to act. You a politician. Oh, I know how you're supposed to act. Oh, you black. I know how you're supposed to act. Oh, you same gender love. No, you don't know nothing except your lived experience, which is only informing you about your life. It is not informing you about mine. I have to inform you about my life through the gift of relationship that comes through storytelling. Storytelling is part of relationships. Relationships have to be built and maintained. They cannot stand on ground that is an illusion. The ground got to be a firm foundation for us to be able to build on it. So those the first 3 verses. Now let's look at verse 4. Here's verse 4. The Lord saw that Moses came near to look at the bush. God spoke to Moses from inside the bush. He said, Moses, Moses. Moses answered, here I am. The Lord saw that Moses came near to look at the bush. God spoke to Moses from inside the bush. Now, first it was the angel of the Lord. Let's notice this now. First it was the angel of the Lord who appeared. Now it says it is God. So was it an angel of the Lord or was it God? Like, which one is it? And that is important. It is really important for me to point out these discrepancies in the text, because I really believe that it absolutely relates to how we function with each other, human to human. We do this kind of bait and switch. Let's think about those of us who have been in, we have been on the dating scene. I was just talking to I don't want to put the business in the street. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. Like, on the dating scene, what happens? The person that I meet when I walk in for the first time, 3 dates later, I realize it's not who the person actually is. So you show up as the angel of the Lord, and then in 3 days, now you God. Like, wait. Can you just show up as who you really are? Like, why do I have to spend all this time trying to figure out, okay, when are you gonna unveil the mask? When are you going to reveal your true self? Is it gonna be in a year? Like, you gonna wait till after we get married? I'll never forget. I had a colleague who was same gender loving, but was struggling with his sexual orientation. And so because he was struggling with it, he felt that the best thing for him to do was to get married to a woman, because that's what the world expected of him. That was an easier life to live, because he did not choose to be same gender loving. I am same gender loving, but it was such a struggle for him. And so he said that he was going to meet a woman, fall in love with a woman. They were going to get into a relationship. And then I said, wait a minute. So are you ever going to tell her? Like, don't you think you should tell her? And this is what he said. He said, yes, I absolutely believe that I should tell her. And I'm going to tell her, but I'm going to wait until she falls in love with me, so that when I tell her, she won't judge me so harshly. And so I thought that was the most selfish thing ever, because I'm like, you're trying to preserve you're trying to protect yourself from judgment, but you lying to this woman for like however long it takes you to finally feel like y'all have fallen in love. What if it takes a year for y'all to fall in love? So she's been in relationship with you. You've been lying to her for a year. And then when you feel like she's going to be less judgmental, then you're going to spring the truth on her. That ain't right. Look, if the person is going to fall in love with you, they're going to fall in love with the essence of who you are. The essence of who you are should be rooted in truth and honesty and transparency. Oh my goodness. And so first it says it was the angel of the Lord. So it's the angel of the Lord who shows up in the bush at first. And then once Moses comes closer, now that the phenomenon has Moses' experience, and it compels him to come closer, now we're going to do a bait and switch. Now it's God talking to you. And now Moses is like, here I am. Oh my goodness. I've been bamboozled without even knowing it. And that is what is happening to us on a regular basis in this world that we live in. It's a bait and switch. You tell me one thing because you want my vote. Let's talk about politics. You come to our churches and you do all this talking. You have all these community events. You tell us all these things. You go on the campaign trail. You make me all these promises. But then when you get in office, you don't fulfill any of them. All you were doing was pulling me closer, drawing me in with this phenomenon, which is rhetoric these days. And now that I'm in, you expect me to just say, oh, okay, because I was compelled by who I thought you were, I'm going to stay true to you. Deception. And so I used it. I put it in the context of politics, but we could also put it in the context of religion. And so we draw people in with this idea of who your God is. So in this case, since we're talking about Christianity, it would be your Jesus. If we're talking about Islam, it would be your Allah. If we're talking about Jewish people, then it would be your Jehovah, right? And so whoever this is that you are believing in, the system of religion, I'm not talking about the spirits of the living gods that we serve. I'm talking about the system of religion paints this picture and designs this illusion of what it really is not an illusion. It's the Bible said it just looked like the bush is burning. That's not what it is. It just looks like it. And because I know how your mind works, you're going to fall for it. Now you're going to say it's burning. And then once I draw you closer, I've got you where I want you. I can feed you what I want you to know, even though this ain't going to work out well for you. It's not going to work out in the way that you do. So we spend all of our time trying to figure it out because, like, wait a minute. I'm gonna make this be this bush, because that's what I thought I was looking at. So I'm gonna fix it so that everything that happens afterwards, no. But this is the bush. This is the bush, the burning bush. I'm gonna make it be a burning bush. No, that's just what you thought it was. That's not what it is. That's what you thought, and that ain't even what God said it is. God ain't said this stuff that we saying from the pulpit. That's just what we say it is. And so, yes, we are being deceived on all. Look, I'm not just picking on religion, on so many fronts: socially, emotionally, psychologically, religiously, professionally, like all of that. And so let's keep going. What happens when we get to verses 5 and 6? God says to Moses, "Do not come nearer. Remove your shoes from your feet. The ground that you are standing on is holy." Then God said, "I am the God that your father worshipped. I am also the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Then Moses covered his face. He was afraid to look at God. Oh, I didn't read that very well, did I? Let me try that again. This is Exodus chapter 3, verses 5 through 6 from the Easy English translation of the Bible. God said to Moses, "Do not come nearer. Remove your shoes from your feet. The ground that you are standing on is holy." Then God said, "I am the God that your father worshipped. I am also the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Then Moses covered his face. He was afraid to look at God. Now let's think about this for a minute. Now this burning bush, this bush that is not burning, this bush that looks like it's burning, has gotten Moses' attention. It has drawn him and compelled. He is fascinated by this. I want to get closer. And so then there's this bait and switch where it's no longer the angel of the Lord. Now it's God. And God says, no, don't come closer. This is holy ground. So now Moses is like, wait a minute. I don't know what to do. This is holy ground. What am I supposed to do? Because he's drawn to it. And as he's drawn to it, in the moment that he is just filled with this emotion, this fascination, that's when the switch happens. And then God shows up and says, "This is holy ground." So now Moses is like, wait, holy ground, wait. Am I on holy ground? I don't even know how to act. I don't even know what to do. And so now I'm in a position for you to tell me what to do, because I don't know what to do, because I was looking for one thing. I was following after one thing, only to find myself in another thing. And so now I'm dependent on you to teach me what this new thing is, because now I'm all confused and I need somebody else to help me. Triana says, met a homie who said he loves Jesus, so he identifies as eunuch to keep him from acting on certain tendencies. I was like, my God, you are still in love with a man in essence. Delulu. Oh, talking about like delusional. Wait a minute. Oh, let me think about what you're saying here. So the man says he loves Jesus, so he identifies as a eunuch to keep himself from acting on certain tendencies. I was like, my God, you are still in love with a man in essence. Huh. Oh, certain tendencies. Maybe these are same gender loving tendencies. So I'm gonna use my love of Jesus, which is a man, to keep me. Oh, what did he say after that? Like you probably took him too deep. You took him too far, too fast. Like, what did he say after that? We don't think about that, because we use Jesus as an excuse, right? To fix everything, to justify everything, right? And so that's exactly what he's doing. So you're so in love with Jesus that you can't be who you are. But God says, "I am that I am." I created you to be who you are. So if you have these certain tendencies, it's not because they are tendencies, it's because it's your essence. And so you don't love yourself. You don't know yourself. You don't trust yourself. You don't even trust Jesus, because if you believe that Jesus is God and God created you and therefore Jesus created you, then Jesus says you are who I created you to be. So live into that. Be same gender loving. Don't deny yourself and blame it on me, because I ain't telling you to deny yourself. You're doing that on your own. But then verse 5 and 6 goes on to say, this is the part that really got me. Verse 5 and 6 goes on to say, verse 6, then God said, "I am the God that your father worshipped. I am also the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." I am the God that your father worshiped. I am also the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So if God meets us where we are, if God created us to be who we are, and if God shows up for us in the same way that God shows up for Moses, and God says, I'm the God that your ancestors worship, it makes me ask, particularly in this moment, Black people, why is you serving a God that's white with blonde hair and blue eyes? That ain't the God your father worshiped. And then it goes on to say, I'm also the God that your ancestors worship. Your ancestors, if you are any member of the African diaspora, your ancestors did not worship Jesus. Most of them were Muslim. Most of them were Muslim. And our African spirituality is not our westernized Christian spirituality. These are two entirely different things. So if we are going to say, like this man says, homie that you met, I'm so in love with Jesus. Well, do you even know who Jesus is? Because Jesus, if you believe in the Trinity, that Jesus is God, God says, I'm the God that your father, Jesus is the God that your father worshiped. The God that your ancestors worship. So if you are worshiping any God other than the God that your ancestors worship, then you don't even know who you are. And so you cannot even say, I am that I am, because you don't know who you are. But God says to us, but I'm trying, this is what this conversation is about, but that's what I'm trying to get you to do. I'm trying to pull you back into the essence of who I created you to be, which is I am. I didn't create you to be president of the board. I didn't create you to be a member of the board. I did not create you to be a politician. I did not create you to be a teacher. I didn't even create you to be an assistant principal. I didn't create you to be any of these things. I created you to be I am. Now, as I am, you show up in these spaces as a manifestation of the I am, and you do the work that I'm calling you to do in these spaces, but the spaces do not define you. I am is what defines you. That's what God is calling us to do, and that is what this conversation is about, reminding ourselves that I am that I am, and if you don't know who you are, it's okay. No judgment here. Let's figure out what's the first step I need to take to get to know who I am. And the first thing we need to do is an exercise. I don't care if you do it as a video journal exercise, whether you write it down, whether you record yourself as an audio journal. I don't care what it is. We've got to do an exercise where we say, what do I do? Who am I and what do I do? Like, and begin to make a list. What do I do? I parent, I teach, I coach, right? But who am I? I am love. I am life. I am peace. I am God. I am divine. Like, and then begin to say, like, where am I spending most of my energy? And what we will realize is I'm spending most of my energy doing rather than spending most of my energy being. And because I'm spending most of my energy doing, then the full manifestation of the divine spirit that we are cannot be made fully manifest because we too busy doing. People, we ought to be an experience for folks. That's the language that I use. When I talk to folks, I'll say, this is how I experience you. Yeah. I experience you as someone who brings light into the room. I experience you as someone whose energy is bubbly and is compelling. I experience you as one who has that is intuitive, that you can see and hear and feel those things that are not on the surface. That's how I experience you. I don't experience you as no politician. As a matter of fact, if we're talking about a politician, in many cases, once you say you're a politician, I'm gonna disregard all of that and I'll say, okay, let's not even talk about politics. Let's talk about you. Tell me about you. Don't tell me about your job. Tell me about you. And so that's what I would like us to do. And I haven't done this yet. I'm gonna do my own exercise. I'm a journaler. Oh, I just bought a new journal today. Was it today or was it yesterday? Yeah, they got journals on sale at Joann. They're 30% off. And so this particular journal has, anyway, I'm running out of time. But this particular journal has a space for you to do like, what are your priorities? And then it has like dots and then it has like lines. And so I have a journal. I also have a moleskin. This is my favorite. It's a moleskin. I have a moleskin journal. And it is graph paper. Can you see that it's graph paper? So that means when I write, sometimes I write this way, sometimes I write that way. And so it allows me to turn, twist, and turn. Oh, I got a regular journal that is just like a ruled journal. So it's nothing but just regular smaller lines, but they're like college rule lines because I don't like them big old lines. That makes me feel like I'm in kindergarten. I still can't write like that. But yeah, so I'm a journaler, so I'm going to do my own work to figure out where am I spending the majority of my energy so that I can begin to make this shift so that in whatever situation I find myself in, whether I'm called to the principal's office because they want to talk to me, I'm called to my supervisor's office because whatever situation I find myself in, I can be reminded that this job is not what defines me. I am going to be, I am on this job. So how do I show up in that way? And so that's what Triana is pushing us to do. Like, this is what I've decided to do as an assistant principal. I'm going to show up as I am in this context, and I'm going to let my essence be what guides me. I'm not going to let your box. I'm not going to let your expectations. I'm not going to let your biases. I'm not going to let your lived experiences determine that for me. Yes, time flies. It's 8 o'clock, and I only got to verse 6. I gotta do better. Thank you all so much for joining us. Maybe we'll pick up with 7 through 11. Like, I'm not sure we have to, because I think I was just trying to get to the verse 14 that says I am that I am, but I feel like I wove that in, so we'll probably start with something else on next week. Thank you so much for joining us for the Good Fight. We'll be right back here next Tuesday from 7 to 8 CST. Bye.